Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Wednesday, March the 22nd. Our science guy, your science guru, is with us, Jack Schultz. Good to have you here,
Hi,
Jack. MU Bond Life Science Center. And whenever you come in, I usually just say, well, what do we want to talk about today? You walked in today and he said, let's talk about the weather.
Well, it's something everybody talks about, right?
Yeah,
but
the
nobody
weather.
does anything about it.
That was an old saying there many years ago.
Yeah.
But, okay, some people think that, and I said, well, you want to talk about global warming? And you said, well, we actually have to wait several more years.
Maybe another lifetime to figure that out.
But some people say global warming or climate change is a hoax. I think most folks would say that it is not a hoax, climate change.
Probably. Most scientists would definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's focus on the immediate situation. We can work our way to the big one.
Okay.
You and I are in short sleeves today.
Yeah.
And it's awfully early in the spring.
Yeah. Now, we should say with this segment, we recorded this segment back in February.
And
this is March 22nd when it's airing, so we don't know what the weather is like today.
Right, that's true. But I think the whole fall and winter have been unusually warm. So
Yes.
anytime you talk about this, it's true. In fact, so far into February, I think something like 6,000 records have been broken in
As
the
far as
U.S.
warmth.
alone in terms of warmth. Yeah. So of course it's on everybody's mind. Why does that happen? And we need to establish a little bit of physics that we're all familiar with first. Hot air rises, right?
Right.
Okay, you're on a university campus, you know hot air must be rising.
Okay.
And colder air sinks. So when colder air sinks, what we call that on the ground is high pressure. And when warm air is rising, we call that
Lower pressure.
low pressure, right? Okay. Now, is it cold or warm at the North Pole?
Well, it's cold at the
It's cold at the North Pole. So typically the air is sinking there, right? And it's a high pressure area. Okay. So when it sinks on top of the globe and then it spreads out. Okay. But it only spreads out so far and it runs into the jet stream, which is going in a circle around just outside the polar ice cap. Okay. But if it sinks enough, what it does is it pushes that jet stream a little farther south. Okay. And ordinarily, sometimes it pushes it south and we have cold weather. Sometimes it fails to push it south and we have warmer weather. You know, what was it, last year, the year before, we had these horrible cold snaps.
They were calling them the polar vortex.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are cases where it was cold enough and conditions are right so that the jet stream got pushed south and we got it. Okay. Well, over the last 2 years, the pole has been warming up. The ice is melting, and that makes a huge difference. When I first moved to Missouri 10 years ago, I had a black car. And I quickly learned in this hot climate that a black car has its problems. It gets really, really hot.
Very hot.
Dark colors absorb heat and release heat. Light colors reflect heat. So when the North Pole is covered in ice and snow, it's white, and it stays cold in part because it's reflecting the heat. Okay.
But as the ice starts to melt, it is absorbing the heat.
That's right. It holds the heat. Okay. So what's happened is as the pole gets warmer, the relationship between temperatures and pressure on the North Pole and everything around it have changed. And one thing that has happened here is that the jet stream has kind of weakened. It's not keeping whatever's happening on the poles in. And as a consequence, you see these blurps where in the winter we get cold snaps, and in the summer we get warm snaps. And this is happening enough that we're even seeing warm snaps in the winter. Of course, here you get to the global warming thing where you have to ask the question, well, how come the ice is melting on the poles? And the only reasonable explanation is that the atmosphere in general is warming, and then we can argue about the causes of that, you know.
Right, but we do have climate change. 99% of scientists agree that there is climate change.
100% of farmers I talk to agree that there's climate change.
Well, I'll tell you what. I remember when I was growing up, Jack, the lilacs did not bloom until May.
Yeah.
The end of February, the lilacs in my yard are starting to put their buds out. Last year, the year before last, I remember the lilacs were finished blooming by this time in March. So that's
Yeah.
that's a 2-month difference there.
When things happen in the spring or in the fall, the timing of things is called the phenology of plants. And you can go online and actually see a map of the flowering and so forth of trees in the U.S. And you'll see it's way far north. It's up into Ohio already.
Yeah. So we've
months
moved
ahead.
into a different zone, a
Yeah.
planting zone.
Right, that's right. Farmers know that. I've been to several conferences recently, and they don't care about the politics, but they do care about when they plant and when they don't. This warm winter's got its risks. For example, wheat seed has been in the ground, and it uses temperatures as one of the cues for germinating, which means that the wheat crop is going to show up kind of early. And everybody's got to be ready, to harvest it and so forth. The timing of relationships, like when insects are out to eat leaves and plants, is going to be screwed up because they use partly day length and they use partly temperatures to decide when to come out. And they're going to come out at a time when plants are either more or less susceptible to them, probably more susceptible. And think about this, birds migrate on the basis of day length. So they're down in the tropics deciding when to come up here.
But the insects are coming out early.
They're coming out early.
And the birds aren't here to eat the insects,
That's right.
which means that the insects can multiply.
That's right. So this situation has already led to some serious pest outbreaks. The western forests are suffering a lot because the temperatures don't get cold enough to kill insect pests over the winter. And so they're happy they get through the winter and more of them come out in the spring. So while we're enjoying the warm weather here,
It does have its
it's
serious
got its
drawbacks.
problems. If we got a frost after this, those buds on your lilac are going to be killed.
Right, right.
So plants are taking a huge risk coming out this early.
But they can't help it.
No, they can't.
They can't help it.
They can't help it.
I always, it bothers me because when I see them coming out, I know there is a chance that we're going to get a frost.
Yeah.
But now the trees have a secondary bud, don't they? If they have a frost,
Yeah.
the trees can come back with a secondary bud, but I don't believe the lilacs do.
I don't know about lilacs. One thing to think about is that it takes energy, mainly stored energy in the spring, for a plant to get those leaves going,
Yeah.
okay, because it's not photosynthesizing yet, So, and that's why we have maple syrup, by the way,
Right.
Okay, so the sap rises and we pay for the leaves. If then we lose the leaves, we have to pay for another sap.
Yeah. All right, if you want more information on any of this, you can check it out at the MU Bond Life Science Center. Jack Schultz, it really is always a pleasure to have you here.
It's always a pleasure to be
Next
here,
time,
Paul.
come with some better news for us, okay?
It is nice out.
Yeah, it is gorgeous. Thank you, Jack.
Sure.
Drop me an email, something you'd like to hear or see, pepperpmissouri.edu. Bye-bye.